Well, one thing we hear a lot from President Trump, and I think a lot of Americans believe, is when he says we had the greatest economy in the world, we'll just build it a second time. I mean, given what we're seeing here in terms of how many people are suddenly being thrown into what certainly doesn't feel like American standards of living, did we really have the greatest economy in the world?
Well, I think one of the questions that's been posed, not just in the last 3 or 4 months or even in the last 10 years, but really for many Americans for the last 50 years, since the 1970s, is whether the idea of an American economy of which they are all stakeholders is in fact a meaningful concept at all. I mean, the president's clearly right that there are pockets of incredible affluence, of great success, of technological prowess, of world-conquering corporate ambition. Like, think of the tech firms, think of the way in which American banks have swept European competition out of the way. Corporate America, elite America, is one of the great winners of globalization, unsurprisingly, since they were the architects of that project, have acquired other people along the way. The Chinese now are major contributors. But that just doesn't capture the reality of middle America, let alone the bottom 20 to 30% of the American income and wealth distribution, who have seen barely any real income growth. There's a huge argument about the statistics, but there's very little real dispute about the fact that the real incomes of those at the bottom third have seen barely any progress since the Bicentennial. American history divides into two epochs: the moment of the American dream up to 1976 and the period since. And what this crisis does is, of course, hit precisely the weakest communities. It hits those who are most fragile, whose health insurance is precarious, who are working, part-time jobs in the service sector. It hits women as well. And it turns out, from a medical point of view, it hits the African-American population, all of which are groups also which have minimal financial resources. We know that 40% plus of American households can't basically cover expenses for more than a few months without a paycheck and have precious little financial reserve and basically no net wealth. So those people are going to suffer a fundamental shock here. And this idea of rebuilding really, or making them whole, begs the question of what it is that we would plan to return to, because they weren't whole in the first place.